You can read almost any book in just 7 days. The idea is really simple. You just look at the number of pages in the book and you divide that by 7, and then you read that number every single day for 7 days, and you will read any book in just 7 days. But while that idea is really simple, it's actually super hard to follow up on that. Why is that? Well, because there are tons and tons of distractions trying to lure you away, try to steal your attention, and keep you from reading the books you want to read. Welcome to Park Notes. I'm Parker Settecase. I'm a philosopher, and this is a channel where I help you study, think, and read more deeply. In this video, I'm going to share some of my best reading tips to help you have undistracted reading time in order that you can read any book in just 7 days, or more importantly, develop a daily reading habit. So make sure you watch the full video so you get all the reading tips. This video is sponsored by Brilliant, but more on that later. Let's jump right in. Okay, so right off the bat, some people are wondering, why would I want to read a book in 7 days? That seems so arbitrary. Well, there are tons of different reasons. Maybe you're on vacation and you only have 7 days. And so you bring a book that you've really been wanting to read for a long time. Well, how are you actually going to read that book on vacation? The best way to ensure that you actually get through the book on your vacation is to take the total number of pages in that book, divide it by 7, and then make sure you hit that goal every single day of your vacation. Maybe you have a book review due at the end of the week and you have to get through this book. How are you going to do that? Well, plan to read enough pages of that book every single day so that by the end of the week, you have it all completed. There are a lot of different reasons for trying to read a book in a week. I'll leave those up to you guys. I'm more interested in helping you develop good reading habits. But the math is super simple. It's just taking page numbers and dividing by 7. But speaking of math and equations, that reminds me of Brilliant. Brilliant is a learning platform designed to be uniquely effective. It's where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and artificial intelligence. They have this first principles approach to help you build understanding from the ground up. Each lesson is filled with hands-on problem solving that let you play with concepts as you learn. This is a method proven to be 6 times more effective than just watching lecture videos. Plus, all the content on Brilliant is crafted by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, Google, and more. Brilliant helps you build critical thinking skills through problem solving, not just memorizing. So while you're building real knowledge on specific topics, you'll also become a better thinker. Brilliant recently launched a ton of new content in data, all of which uses real-world data to train you to see trends and make better informed decisions. It's perfect for learners of any level to start or continue learning data analysis, with a fully built-out suite of new content from Bayes' theorem to multiple linear regression. This is great if you want to bone up on your math, or if you want to bone up on Bayes' theorem to help you with your Bayesian epistemology. And right now, my Park Notes audience can try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for 30 days. Just visit brilliant.org/parknotes or click on the link in the description or the pinned comment. And you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. So big thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. All right, so we've done our math. You've taken the total number of pages in your book and you divided it by 7. You have a daily page number goal. Now we need to look at our calendars and plan out specific times to actually read that number of pages. So you're going to look at your calendar and you're going to come up with a time. It could be the same time every day, or you could fit it in wherever you can, but make sure you're planning time to read. If you don't have a plan, you're probably not going to accomplish your goals. Next, we need to find a good reading location. Maybe that's a local coffee shop. Maybe it's your home office. Maybe it's the dining room table. Whatever is the most conducive environment for you to read the daily page numbers that you've set, go there and knock out your daily goal. Next up, we have some of my favorites, that is notebooks. First, you're going to get yourself a reading log. So you've come up with a daily goal, but now you're going to track them in a dedicated reading log. If you need to read 64 pages every single day of the week in order to finish the book, then you're going to mark that down in here. Now, maybe you want to get ahead a little bit, and so you read 75 instead. We'll mark that down, and now you've given yourself a little breathing room for tomorrow or the next day or the next day. But keep track of your goals. If you want to accomplish your goals, you have to keep track of them. Reading logs are super helpful, and you can go back at the end of the year and remind yourself, what were you reading when? How many pages did you read? And it'll help you plan for the future. How many pages can I realistically read a day? Well, how many do I actually read? Let me go back and do some math. Next up, we have book notes. I have a dedicated notebook just to the books that I'm reading in order to help me keep track of the plot. It turns out I'm really good at reading philosophy and theology and abstract concepts, but I have a harder time reading fiction because I'm not very good with names, and certain authors like Christopher Rocchio give several different names to one single thing. So I found it helpful to keep a journal dedicated just to book notes. especially fiction. So when I'm reading a book like Vulcan's Hammer by Philip K. Dick, I found it helpful to keep track of the key characters, the theme, who's related to who, as well as recording some of the thoughts that sprung up while I was reading. This helps me keep on task. It's really helpful for me to take 30 seconds and write down my thoughts so I can get back to reading and trying to accomplish my page number goal. I've also been writing summaries after each chapter, and I can go back and read these before I start the next chapter so that if it has been a day or two, I'm not lost when I pick it back up again. Now, if it's an old book like Vulcan's Hammer, if it's a collectible, I'm not going to write in here. I'm not going to take marginal notes. I'm not going to annotate the text. But if it's just like a regular paperback mass market, I'm going to take some marginal notes. I'm going to mark up the text, annotate it, so I can come back and harvest out quotes or reflect on the story a little bit more. So you can take marginal notes like I do and use a notebook for your book notes. You can do one or the other, whatever you're most comfortable with, but take notes so that you can offload those thoughts and then get back into the text. Next up, and probably my favorite, is a catch-all notebook. This is just a pocket notebook that I use while I'm reading in order to capture all the thoughts that spring up as I'm reading a book. I noticed that when I finally sit down to start reading a book, all these tasks come jumping into my head. All these great ideas, all these connections, my mind plays tricks on me in order to get me to stop reading. Reading is hard, and my mind says, no, don't you want to do this instead? Hey, think about this idea. Hey, didn't you need to get your oil changed? Hey, what about a car wash? Hey, here's a brand new idea. Here's a connection I want to make. My mind wants to sidetrack me to keep me from reading because reading is difficult. It takes sustained concentration. A lot of work. So I found that using a pocket notebook catch-all when I sit down to read helps me to read in peace. Instead of trying to hold on to that task or that memory or that important event that I need to think about, instead of just trying to store that in here, I'll offload it into my pocket notebook. I'm going to check the pocket notebook later throughout the day, probably several times, and definitely before bed, so I don't have to worry about losing that thought. But if I don't offload it into here, it's just going to be chewing at my mind while I'm trying to read. So I think this is probably the most helpful tool for giving yourself uninterrupted reading time. Keep a catch-all notebook, store all the thoughts that pop up while you're reading, and then go back and visit them later. And then the last notebook I have for you here is a personal dictionary. So while I'm reading, I often find really great words that I've forgotten about or words that I never knew in the first place. These are words that I want to incorporate back into my own vocabulary or use in my own short stories. So while I'm reading, when I find one of these words, I block them out and then I continue reading. When I'm done with the reading for the day or whenever I have time, I go back and I find those blocked out words and I add them to my own personal dictionary. I often include a line or two from where I found that word in order to give myself context, as well as remind myself of what I was reading. But then I'll look up a definition or two and give the etymology so I can further understand that word and further incorporate it into my own vocabulary. So this is just another way to further motivate myself to do my daily reading. Hey, you may find a really good word, but I'm not letting that distract me. I'm just going to block off the word. I'll go back later after I've already accomplished my goals and add them to my dictionary. So next up is just a little timer. I use this to keep track of the time that I've allotted myself to read. We're all super busy. We have a lot of stuff going on. So you have to give yourself time for uninterrupted reading, but you have to actually use that time. If I have a timer going, then I'm less likely to turn to my phone and start scrolling through social media. I know I only have this much time to read today, so I better use it wisely. If I don't, then I will not accomplish my daily goals and I won't be able to finish this book on time. I use this little digital one instead of my phone because I don't have a great relationship with my phone right now and it constantly wants to lure me back in to waste my time. These are super simple. They're pretty cheap. I'll leave a link to this one in the description, but get whatever timer works best for you. But I'd recommend not using your phone. It's too big of a temptation. And then lastly, this is super primitive, super easy, but it's just a book weight. This is just a piece of leather with 2 weights in it, and it sits on your book and keeps your page open. It's super simple, but it's just one more tool to help you actually accomplish your daily reading goals. It keeps the page open for you, helps you write in your book. If you have to get up to get some water or to help with a baby or whatever, your place is saved. And then on top of using a book weight, if I'm taking marginal notes, I will often just put a dash where I stopped reading. That way, when I get back to the book, I can go right to the dash and continue reading right where I left off. Those are super simple tips, but I hope they're actually practical for you. All right, so that's it. That's how you can read any book in just 7 days. You certainly don't have to try and read any book in 7 days, but if you're going to and you want to actually accomplish that goal, those are some tips and some tools to help you get there. Again, what's most important is that you develop healthy reading habits that encourage you to read every single day. If you continually put in the work, you'll be surprised at the end of the year how many books you read, how many papers you read, and how your skill as a reader has grown exponentially. So I want to hear from you guys. What's your favorite tip from the video? And if you have any extra tips, then please leave those in the comments so we can all learn together. If you guys made it this far, then you are awesome. Leave me a book stack emoji so I can see who the real ones are. And if you like this video, then make sure to leave me a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future tips or tricks. All right, that's going to do it for now. I'll catch you guys next time.